No, she's not. She's a hairdresser. This is Barbara. This is Mom. Probably. Yes. I used to cut his hair, but then since we were married, I've never. And he even kind of made his own She's also one of the next generation. Yes. We're going to have to go on a cruise, Mom. Yes. I know. Yeah. She's been through. We're going on a cruise next year. Yes. That was 29 years ago, Mother. I know. I don't know if you watch it. And that was what I did. So you're retired? You're yeah, I'm yeah. Your family, there's Hi, Gary. How are you? Yeah, you too. And
Changed a bit. Everybody is shorter as they go. Not yet. You know, Mary's
We're all moving.
We've got to wait. Stay long.
I don't know. I may have seen you out there in the world at one point, but yes, probably your mom's that's so many
That's also on
that's pretty cool. Yes, I think that's another great. That was that might have been the very first time. That was a cool house.
yeah.
I don't do it.
Oh,
I've got the studio.
Thanksgiving.
Glad you're here. Stick around.
Everybody's kind of
Good to see you.
I sure don't remember dancing. I appreciate
That one picture, that's standing there. Yeah, he got it. Homer Fears in one of the pictures. Homer Fears. Yeah, we played doubles for that one time. Yeah. I always remember that too. Like in the last few years, private, we did a lot of
Oh, you look like Mark. Thank you. Oh, and I'm Mary Hospital. I'm Rogers. From forever ago. Oh.
That's when I
So I know. And we're from, I'm from Scotland area, but I only heard of his death a friend of ours. So
we were doing Wednesdays.
yeah, well, I'm the oldest of my two brothers.
Bill.
I know we are. Well, is Barbara? Yes.
We're stopped when I started. You guys played fine bar.
Yeah. So you live in Florida too, don't you? Yes, I do. Yeah. Todd. Oh, really? Yeah. Well, and then there was Nancy. Nancy and Bob. Yeah, I only got.
You guys play a lot of golf. You need that.
I mean, but I mean, in Maryland now, I haven't seen never seen her. Right.
Stick with it.
Oh, you look. I remember you. I don't know. I mean, it's on, but you look like yeah, we do. We look alike. Mary? Mary? Oh, for goodness sake. Oh, Mary. You know, Dad, there was why you sit here? Can you change sizes for Steve?
Ladies and gentlemen, I have your attention, please. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all so much for coming out today to honor and celebrate the life of Robert Zappe. Before we get started with services, if you could please pull your cell phones out and make sure they are silent for the service, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce celebrant Brian Bennett to begin the services. Again, folks, thank you for coming out today.
As Jennifer said, good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be able to be here today with all of you, and on behalf of the family, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. You know, I always love to come early and be able to see all the pictures that are shown and kind of listen to the conversation and get a vibe of the room. And I'll be honest, you guys are a little rowdy. But from the story that I got to hear so far about Roger, it sounds like he would be thrilled with that. And you know, I think over the last 10 years or so, we've kind of moved away from calling what we're doing here this afternoon a funeral. And you're hearing more and more of the phrase life celebration. And I like that shift, because as hard as a day like today is, and it doesn't matter if you expect it or if it's sudden, a day like today is hard. But there's also a lot to celebrate over the course of his 80 years. And I can tell there's a lot of friends, there's a lot of energy. I got to meet a few in the other room, and I got to see all the memorabilia. It looks like golf was a little bit part of his life. And in honor of that, I've been in the other room watching the Masters for the last few minutes. But I know there's a lot of different relationships represented in this room, a lot of different years. And it's so important that you're coming here today. I believe that every life is a story that deserves to be told. Because we can learn from somebody's life, we can be inspired by somebody's life, and you guys, this room, you are the pages and chapters of that story. There's no doubt you're here today because somewhere along the way, your line and Roger's line of the family is crossed, and you knew that it was important for you to be here today. And I had the privilege of spending quite a bit of time talking to Barbara and hearing part of their chapter and their story together, and she just did a phenomenal job of being able to tell that. And I know here in a few moments we're going to be hearing from some of the other people that also had a great relationship with him. You know, life is it's a long story, and in his 80 years, you know, it's hard for me to wrap my head around all the different things. And some of you were probably around his age. And since that day, on June 22nd, 1944, there's a lot that's happened. You know, he would have experienced the end of World War II, the Civil Rights Movement, the moon landing, all the changes, computers, you know, way back before we had these things to carry around, the Berlin Wall, the internet, 9/11, COVID-19, so many different things over the course of his life. A very wise person once said, it's okay to miss him. It's okay to say his name every day. It's okay to cry. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to breathe deeply. It's okay to smile when you think of him. It's going to be okay to have days when you can function, and it's going to be okay to have days when you just can't. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be thankful. It's okay to remember, and it's okay to hope. And the biggest thing is that it's okay to feel however it is you're feeling. I think that's the biggest thing that I've learned over the course. I'm what they call a funeral celebrant. I have a normal job like most of you. I'm a leadership consultant by profession, but I do this because a few years ago I lost my mom to cancer. And doing what we're doing here today suddenly became very, very important. You know, being able to come together and see friends that maybe you haven't seen in a little while and look at some old pictures and share some old stories, it is such a huge part of the healing process. And here in a little while, we're going to open these doors, and I hope a lot of you can stay and enjoy some more time and some food together and keep telling stories, because that's where the real healing comes from. Ernest Hemingway once said, you know, in our darkest moments, we don't need advice. What we truly need is presence. We need someone to sit with us in the shadows, to acknowledge our suffering without trying to fix it. In those moments, silence and understanding speak louder words, offering quiet strength that reminds us we're not alone in this. And that's the power of having you guys together. I'm a big believer in something that I refer to as holy collisions. And what I mean by that is throughout the course of our life, if you think about it, there are certain times that we are lucky enough to run into the exact right person at the exact right time of our lives for the exact right reason that we were supposed to run into that person. That to me is a holy collision. You might be sitting next to one of your holy collisions right now. And you think back to that first moment you met. You know, who talked to who first? What was it you saw in each other that led to the significant relationship it is today? And if you think about it, we can set aside all the stuff we've ever owned, all of our accomplishments, and what life really boils down to are those significant relationships. It's those holy collisions, and there's no doubt this room is filled with those. Well, whenever I have the privilege to do a service like this, I don't know any of you, but I believe that this group sitting in this room on this afternoon, we're our own version of a holy collision. You can't explain why this group of human beings would ever be at the same place at the same time, and yet here we are. And let's be honest, when we parked our cars a few minutes ago, we all have things we're worried about. We have decisions we're trying to make. There might be something going on in your life this afternoon that nobody else in this room is even aware of. And all that stuff's going to be waiting for us when we get back in our cars later. So my hope, my prayer is that by the time we go back to our own busy lives, we're going to take some of His Spirit with us. And to me, that is the best and most powerful way to celebrate someone's life. When you learn from them, when you remember something. So before I go any further, if you're comfortable joining me, I'd like to ask you if you would to join me for a word of prayer. Okay? God, I thank you for this holy collision of friends, family, decades of relationships and memories and stories. And I don't understand how you do it, but I have a personal belief that you can look down on a room like this and you know what's going on in the lives of every person sitting in every chair in this room. So I pray that in the few moments we have to celebrate Roger's story, that we might remember something, realize something, feel something that we can immediately put in place in our lives today. And by doing that, take His Spirit out of this room to make sure that His legacy continues to live on. So God, I pray for our time here today that we might be able to provide healing and comfort and understanding that will last way past today. In your name I pray these things. Amen.
Amen.
You know, I got to hear about some of the main chapters of his life. I've already mentioned Barbara. She was able to share their chapter and what that meant to the family. And I really thought it was special that you guys have been able to stay close together all these years. You know, I have the experience of talking to a lot of different families and family situations, and you could still feel that there was a lot of love and respect there. And I think that's special. I really do. I also got to hear about his chapter with Darva, which led to Aislinn and her kids, Declan, Keston, Ryson, and Kyan. Did I get those right? I've been practicing for 3 days just to make sure I pronounce those beautiful names correctly. And so for the next few moments, I'm going to get out of the way because this room has some people in it that knew him a lot better. And Aislinn's going to be the first to come up. And then after she's done, I'm going to have Larry, a friend of the family, come up, and then David after him. And then I'll come back up later. So Aislinn, come on.
Hello. I will keep it brief, but for those of you that don't know me, I'm Aislinn, stepdaughter. And as I've learned today, I'm probably better known as the mom to the dude. So Roger came barreling into my life when I was 8. And he definitely made his mark. He's the only father that I knew. And there were big ways and small ways. The bigger things, I mean, he helped send me to college. We took vacations. He sent me to Germany. All of these really great experiences. But probably more importantly are the small things. I love penguins because he liked penguins. I got in trouble in school for writing in all caps because he wrote in all caps. Never quite got the hang of golf. The first time he tried to teach me, I swung back and hit him in the throat with a putter. I haven't improved since then. But he did help instill a love of good music, good food, making time for your friends. And all of that became a part of who I am. As I got older, things got complicated. But we grew closer again once I had the boys. It was evident that he loved being a grandpa, and just thought, I was telling Kyan that he really thought the sun shone out of that child. You could tell how much he loved him. Kyan couldn't say grandpa when he was little, so he dubbed him Poco Raj, which we got a kick out of because Poco means little. So we ran around calling him Little Raj. But all the boys have just stuck with that. Him being around the kids, he would just light up. And I'm thankful that I was able to, have that with him. Later on, after my mom passed, he showed up. And I think so often that's the most important thing you can do, is just show up. And he would come to every basketball game, baseball game, crew events for Kyan, school events. He called constantly and wanted to know, what was going on with the kids and how were they. My life is a little chaotic with 4 boys, so he would come over and just sit in the mess with us, and just laugh that that's how our day-to-day was. But he would take the kids for ice cream and take them to play in the creek, and then he just showed up. And a lot of times, I needed it. Things haven't always been easy. Like I said, it's been a lot of chaos, but that meant a ton. He wasn't perfect, but he definitely tried, and he loved my boys. So I just wanted to come and kind of say something on their behalf. Sorry. I just know they're gonna miss.
Well, that's a tough thing to follow. My name is Larry Baldwin, for those of you that don't know me. Met Roger when we were in high school, 65 years ago. And Roger Stephen Zappe, also known as Zappe. What a guy. I wrote some notes here because I know I couldn't remember all this. You remember with the old enough I've seen here, remember the old Happy Days show? Well, he was fun. He didn't dress like a hoodlum or act like a hoodlum, but he sure was different and funny. And I was goody two-shoes Richie. But we became great friends. I met his mother a couple of times, and I actually played golf with his father. And I wondered how they produced a guy like Roger. I remember back in high school, we had a senior day, and all the classmates elected him to be the MC. And next day, I get called down to the office by the principal, because I was class president, Richie, he's fun. And the principal says, we can't have him do the senior day. I said, why not? Says, oh, he'll have everything all messed up and create all kinds of problems and everything. I said, no, we all elected him to do it. So I want him to do it. He says, will you stand up for him and tell him that he has to do that? I said, yeah, I'll tell him. So I did it. I went to Roger and said, you better not screw up. So he did. He ran a great thing. And then towards the end of the year, prom came, and he and I just got this great idea that we're going to rent an after prom place, have an after prom party. Well, we rented the Plantation Club, which is long gone. It's out on Salem Avenue. It had a swimming pool and everything. and it was expensive. So he and I had to sell the tickets to all the people going to the prom. About a week before the prom, I said to Roger, I said, you know, we're gonna be in trouble here. We haven't sold many tickets. He says, don't worry about it, I'll take care of it. Well, by the time the prom came, we had an extra month. So I knew then he was gonna be a salesman. We went our separate ways after high school. We both got married young, but we got together a lot, come together and play Monopoly and different things. And of course, we both had young kids, but we saw each other on a somewhat regular basis. So then we got into golf. I think he was the reason I got into it. It became a lifetime passion for both of us. And which brought in more of our great friends. And we started a yearly golf outing. When I say we, he used to write letters to invite us to this thing. I wish I had kept some of them. But anyway, some of the friends, there was 8 of us usually, and some of them are still in this room that went. It lasted for 52 years. Great fun, just a 4-day outing, which started in Kentucky, and eventually we would fly to Florida, fly in one day, play 3 more times, fly back that night. In our 25th year, we went to Jamaica. We went all out. Roger and I had other great experiences. One is I remember when he invited me to play in a golf tournament from one of his customers in Wisconsin, because I was going to be in Chicago for a hardware show. And so he says, I'll pick you up. We'll go up there, we'll play. And he says, I usually stay all night there. I said, well, I don't want to stay all night at a friend's house. They don't know me. Said, okay, we'll get a motel. All right. So he picks me up. I'm staying at the Fairmont, which is right on Lake Michigan, a beautiful place. Takes me up there, we play golf. It's fine. And we go to their house. And there was a whole bunch of people there. And it was a nice party. I said, well, I think it's time to go. So we get in the car and we go to the nearest town. I don't know what town it was. I think there was 2 motels in town. They were both sold out. So he says, well, we'll go back and stay. I have a room there that they keep for me. I said, okay. So we go back. Well, he comes back downstairs and there's somebody in our room, my room. So we ended up, I slept with Roger on a pull-out couch in the living room. And there were so many mosquitoes in the building for being there, in and out, and I put a sheet over my head and stay all night. Anyway, that's just one of the things that he's got to say. I know one thing is his co-workers thought an awful lot of it, and his customers. His customers weren't customers, they were friends. And I got to meet a lot of them, and I know there was a couple of them here today, and he was just friends with everyone. I mean, you couldn't meet him. We used to go to Florida in the wintertime, and we hadn't been there in 15 years. And I still have people that I talk to on the phone, and they say, we'll talk about normal things, and they say, how's your buddy Roger? Because they know. And that's been 15 years ago. So he's just a one of a kind, that's all you can say about him. There's someone else I'd like to mention, that's Barbara. They young married couple, raised their family together. They're all sitting right here now. Even though they've been divorced for many years, Barbara used to organize some trips where all the whole family would go, including Roger, and they go on these nice trips. I know they went to Europe and some cruises and things like that. And then when he started going downhill, Barbara was the one that started taking care of him. And he lived by himself, but she did everything for him. She filled his pill boxes, she did, you name it, she did it. And I call her State Market now. So, all in all, Roger was a great guy and a wonderful friend. And I hope my good friend But Lord, that she knew this is gonna happen. I hope the Lord lets you in the pearly gates.
Thank you, Lord. Thank you, Lord.
Hi, I'm a friend of Roger's. My name's Dave Cody. And when Barbara asked me if I'd say a few words at Roger's celebration, I said yes, and thank her for the opportunity to speak about my friend. When I started writing, I realized that most of what I was thinking about were Roger stories. I'm sure everyone here who knew him has a story or two to tell. You know, those stories that were funny or maddening or I can't believe he said that or I can't believe he did that. How did he get away with that? And so on. Well, those stories are all stored away in the back of our minds. And whenever we want them, they're there to bring a smile to our face or to share at our discretion. So rather than tell Roger stories, I thought I would tell the story of Roger, a man I knew and was a friend for over 60 years. Well, to the best of my knowledge, Roger started out as a child. And he stayed that way the remainder of his life. I don't mean that he was unaware or naive, but he was positive, adventurous, spontaneous, and always living his mantra, which was fun, fun, fun. I've been friends with Roger since high school. He was popular. He had lots of friends. He was voted the prettiest hair. But just a few years later, he was bald. Not that that's a problem, just a little irony. He got married soon out of high school. Married his high school sweetheart. Got a job at a paper mill, started a family, and was getting by like the rest of us back then. Well, things changed after he seriously injured his right hand on the job and was unable to work. With a wife and 3 young kids at home and no money coming in, things got kind of tough. Well, fortunately, the manager in the office knew Roger and knew his situation and saw some potential there. So he asked Roger if he'd be interested in working in the office on the inside sales desk. Well, after talking it over with the wife, he traded in his blue collar for a white shirt and tie, and that was the beginning of a very successful career. And as Roger would say, my career took off like a bottle rocket. So that was the beginning of a very successful career. Problem was, for all of us who knew him, we couldn't figure out how the hell he could hold a job. Be so successful. All he ever did was talk on the phone and play golf. He played here, he moved a family to Chicago, he played golf there, played all over the country and even in Europe. Always fulfilling his mantra of having fun, fun, fun. He was a man who knew how to enjoy himself, and if you hung out with him, you'd be having fun as well, at least in most cases. He liked music. He loved the blues. He referred to himself sometimes as a blues man. He kind of thought of himself as a pretty good dancer, too. You see, I don't know if I could do this, but he'd get out on the dance floor, he'd kind of close his eyes, he'd kind of get into this, you know. He's saying, he didn't move his feet much, but he had the rhythm. Yeah, he was pretty cool. But I always thought of him as a free bird rather than a blues man. I saw him as a colorful bird, unwilling to be caged, not crazy about being alone, flying in and out of our lives on his mission to pack 10 pounds of fun in a 5-pound bag. And at times he'd let you down. But there was never any malice, because his dance card was probably overbooked. Because if there was ever a party, a card game, a golf match, a gathering of any type, people would always ask, is Roger coming? Is Roger going to be here? And that's kind of like the way it was. Well, his golf game was always average. He broke 80 a couple of times. He did have a couple holes in one, to his credit. And he did eventually get hair. And it looked pretty good. As a salesman, and that's what he was a salesman. He sold fine grain, I think, printing papers. Never really knew for sure. And he sold them by the train carload. His orders would be classified by the ton. You know, I have this on a fairly reliable source, that a customer of his was asked, I hear that you do a lot of business with Roger. And the customer says, yeah, I do. He says, well, boy, that Roger guy, he must really know a lot about paper. The customer says, he doesn't know jack about paper. But he's a lot of fun. So as a salesman, he was the best. As a human, he's unforgettable. And speaking for the men who played golf with him for over 50 years on our annual trip, who met for poker every month for decades, who met for lunches, for drinks, and fun, we say Godspeed as that colorful bird flies over the rainbow and leaves our world just a little less bright than it was when he was here. That's all, folks.
Thank you.
I think we would all agree that was a phenomenal set. One great job, gentlemen. Just to be able to paint that picture, you know, that's my privilege whenever I get to meet someone that I never knew. When I sit back, I'm trying to listen. I get to listen to Barbara talk about him, and I was anxious today to get to hear, because there's a common theme in Roger's life from an outsider's point of view. And the theme is people. People. It feels like over the course of his life that the thing that mattered the most to him were people. And many of you in this room are the recipients of that and probably gave a lot back to him as well. You know, I got to hear about his career. I loved hearing about his 50-year career and learned some things here that it sounds like that hand injury really led to who he was supposed to be in the first place. And that's how life is, you know, as we all sit in here today, we've been led through the different chapters of his life. And I agree, your love story is kind of cool. It may not be what Nicholas Sparks would write down, but isn't this what's supposed to happen? You know, in the relationships, the 50 years of golf trips together. You know, I'm a golfer too, and I know that it's a lot more. The great thing about golf is it's not so much about the game. It's about spending 4 or 5 hours with the other people that you're playing with. And that's what I hear, you know, the relationship with your kids and people. Because that's the thing that matters more than anything else. You know, I got to hear what a big fan he was of other sports like UD and a Bengal fan, and all the golf and energy. I would say people and energy are the two things that seem to be echoing in my head. You know, I have 3 sons of my own. And January the 2nd, 2023, I was doing maybe the same thing that Roger was doing that night. It was a Monday night. And in this part of the country, it was a big Monday night because if you remember that night, the Bengals were getting ready to play the Bills that night. Monday Night Football. It was a big deal. Stadium was packed, national football coverage. But if you know anything about that night, that all came to a screeching halt the moment that young DeMar Hamlin hit the turf.
Yes.
And whether you're a sports fan or not, it would be almost impossible not to know some part of that story because it literally traveled around the globe. You know, I don't think other than watching the events of 9/11, I've ever watched something more surreal than that hour. You know, for all we knew, we just watched somebody die on national television. The broadcaster didn't know what to say. 60,000 fans were silent. These young athletes in the prime of their life, they were kneeling and shaking and crying because that's what trauma does. Whether we expect it or not, we don't really have a place to put it. And in the next couple days after that, if you remember, I don't think I ever heard so much open talk about prayer, miracles. I mean, it was on the news, ESPN, and for them it worked because on Wednesday, if you remember the story, DeMar Hamlin woke up. He couldn't talk because he still had a lot of tubes in his throat, but he could write. And reportedly, they gave him a whiteboard and a marker, and the very first thing he wrote down was, did we win the game? And in a moment of profound wisdom, the doctor dealing with DeMar Hamlin said, you did. DeMar, you win. We didn't even finish the other game, but DeMar Hamlin, you win. I have a sense, and I wouldn't say this if I didn't believe it, that the last moment that Roger took a breath on this side of heaven, I believe Jesus looked him in the eye and said, well done. You win. And what one of us in this room wouldn't give everything to have this on the day that it's our turn? When you have this many friends come out, get emotional and laugh, have stories and memories, because this is what life's all about. You know, what if we didn't measure life so much by years, but we measured by impact? I think every one of us in this room would have to agree Roger wins. And if there's anything we can walk out of here today with is maybe to take a closer look at the people that are watching us. I would dare to say that most every person in this room, we have a circle of people that are watching how we do life. They're watching how we handle the good times and the hard times and all the times in between. And if we can do nothing else today to celebrate Roger's life, the thing to do is to take some of that spirit and realize that life is a gift and the people in it are the biggest gift of all. So I'd like to close my time with you today with a reading that I hope brings honor to Roger's life, but I hope it brings challenge to every one of us. It's a spoken word by a group called Fearless Soul, and it's called If I Die Today. If I were to die today, would I be proud of the life that I've lived? If I were to die tomorrow, was I happy? Would I be proud of the person that I've become? Has there been love in my life? Have I given enough love? Did I show those I love the real me? Could I have done things better, differently? Will anybody miss me? What will I leave behind? Will anyone on earth be better because I was there? Because the truth is, not one of us in this room this afternoon knows for sure we're going to wake up tomorrow. We did not walk into this room with that guarantee. So if you don't like who you've been up to this moment, make a change and make it today in Roger's honor. If you have a broken relationship with someone you really love, mend it today. If you can give more love, give it now. If you can play more and work less, decide and commit to do that now. If you can do anything to improve the quality of your life, make that commitment today. Write down everything that you can change in your life, everything that cannot wait for tomorrow. If you need to make a phone call, what if you made it this afternoon? If you need to make an apology, apologize. If you need to give somebody a hug, give them a hug. What if we stop worrying so much about how the other person may or may not respond that we just woke up every single day with the commitment, today I'm going to be the very best version of myself. When we're our true self, when we're present, when we're living in the moment. So get excited about your life. Love your life while you're still living it. Our new life starts right now. And it sounds to me, after hearing Roger's story, that this is the man who loved life every moment that he could. And so thank you for allowing me to be part of your holy collision today. Barbara, thank you for the work that you put into making sure that today happened. And thank all of you for being here today. And I'm gonna close with a word of prayer. Jen's gonna come and dismiss us, and then we're gonna hopefully go and enjoy some food and tell some more Roger stories. Let's pray. God, I thank you for the inspiration of this afternoon. Roger's going to keep making a difference because of the way that he lived, because I get a sense that those friends, they're going to step in and fill some of the hole and the energy that isn't here anymore. And every one of us, I pray that we can walk away from here today thinking about the people in our lives and what the difference that we can make, like Aislinn said, just by showing up. Just by simply showing up. And so, God, I thank you for this afternoon. I thank you for the celebration, but I thank you most of all for the exact way that you made Roger. In your name I pray these things. Amen. Amen.
This does conclude the services here today for Roger. Thank you all so much for coming out to honor and celebrate his life. We are going to be opening these doors, inviting you folks to continue telling stories, sharing memories over food and drink. Again, folks, thank you all so much for coming out. Thank you all for listening.
Brian, are you gonna be able to stay?
I cannot.
Oh, okay. Okay.